Hi, I'm Sabrina, and this is exam 4, where we're going to go over the kidneys. The kidneys are two bean-shaped organs. They are located in the back, below the rib cage, and there's one on each side of the spine. They're usually the size of the fist. The right kidney is generally smaller and lower than the left kidney, and that's because it needs to make room for the liver. A tough fibrous renal capsule surrounds each kidney and provides support for soft tissue inside. Beyond that, there's also 2 layers of fat that serve more protection. Inside the kidneys, there are several pyramid-shaped lobes, and each of them consists of an outer renal cortex and an inner renal medulla. Nephrons flow between these sections. Each nephron includes a filter called the glomerulus and a tubule. The glomerulus filters the blood which enters the kidney through the renal arteries and it leaves through the renal veins. The kidneys are relatively small, but they receive 20 to 25% of the heart's output. The tubule returns necessary substances to the blood and it removes the waste, then it becomes the urine. The kidneys excrete urine through the ureter, a tube that leads to the bladder. The main role of the kidneys is to maintain homeostasis. They manage fluid levels, electrolyte balance, and the other factors that keep the internal environment of the body consistent and comfortable. The kidneys remove various waste products and they eliminate them in the urine. They filter around 200 quarts of blood every 24 hours, and about 2 quarts leave the body in the form of urine. Some major compounds break down of nucleic acids and they are removed by the drugs and the metabolites and their metabolites. The kidneys reabsorb the nutrients from the blood, allowing the tubules to transport them to where they will support the health. They also reabsorb other products to help maintain the homeostasis. Reabsorbed proteins include glucose, amino acids, bicarbonate, water, sodium, and magnesium, and potassium ions. The kidneys help maintain the pH balance. In humans, the range of acceptable pH is usually about 7.35 to 7.45. If these levels get too low or high, the body enters a stage of acidemia or alkalemia. In these states, proteins and enzymes break down and they can no longer function. In extreme cases, this can be fatal. The kidneys and the lungs help keep the body's pH stable. The lungs achieve the moderating the concentration of carbon dioxide in the blood, and the kidneys manage the pH by reabsorbing and producing the bicarbonate from the urine, which helps neutralize the acids. The kidneys can retain the bicarbonate if the pH is tolerable and if it releases the acid levels rise. They produce new bicarbonates by excreting acid. Osmolarity is a measure of the body's electrolyte water balance and its ratio between the fluids and the minerals in the body. Dehydration is a primary cause of electrolyte imbalance. If osmolality rises in the blood plasma, the hypothalamus in the brain responds by passing a message to the pituitary gland. This gland is responsible for antidiuretic hormones, and in the response to ADH, the kidney makes several changes, including increasing urine concentration, increasing water reabsorption, reopening the portions of the collecting duct, and the water cannot normally enter. Allowing water back into the body, it retains urea in the medulla of the kidney rather than excreting it as a compound, and it draws in water. The kidneys regulate the blood pressure, but they are more responsible for the slower adjustments. They adjust long-term pressure in the arteries by causing changes in the fluid outside of the cells. The medical term for the fluid is extracellular fluid. The fluid changes occur after the release of vasoconstrictor called angiotensin II. Vasoconstrictors are hormones that cause the blood vessels to narrow. These hormones play a role in increasing the kidney's absorption of the sodium chloride or the salt. The absorption increases the size of the extracellular fluid compartment and raises blood pressure. Anything that alters the blood pressure, including extra alcohol consumption, smoking, and obesity, can occur over time. The kidneys release several important compounds, including erythropoietin. This controls the erythropoiesis, which is responsible for the production of the red blood cells. The liver also produces erythropoietin, but the kidneys are the main producers in adults. Renin, the enzyme helps manage the expansion of the arteries, but the volumes of the blood, plasma, lymph, and interstitial fluid Lymph is the fluid that contains the white blood cells which support the immune activity, and the interstitial fluid is the main component of the extracellular fluid. Cholesterol is the hormone active metabolite of the vitamin D, and it increases the amount of calcium in the intestines can absorb in the reabsorption of the phosphate in the kidney. In people with diabetic neuropathy, damage can occur in the capillaries of the kidney, and this results from long-term diabetes. Stones can form from a buildup of minerals in the kidneys, and they can cause intense pain, and they may affect the kidney function if the block is in the ureter. Kidney infections tend to result from bacteria in the bladder and transfers to the kidney. The symptoms you can include lower back pain, painful urination, and sometimes fever. Changes in the urine may include the presence of blood, cloudiness, and unusual odor. Kidney infections are more common in females than males, and they usually affect pregnant women. Sometimes they can also be antibiotic resistant as well. And in people with renal failure, the kidneys become unable to filter out the waste products effectively, and an acute injury to the kidney occurs due to low blood pressure, dehydration, or certain medications. The condition may be reversible with treatment. Some common causes of acute damage may reduce the blood flow to the kidney caused by severe dehydration and the heart not being able to pump blood effectively due to various reasons. Chronic kidney damage can develop as a result of a combination of social and environmental factors. Factors that can increase the risk is diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, obesity, smoking, and the use of tobacco products. Also, excessive alcohol can lead to damage to the kidneys. Certain health conditions can lead to chronic kidney damage, including the glomerulus disease, polycystic kidney disease, autoimmune conditions such as lupus, severe infections such as sepsis, kidney cancers, kidney stones, and frequent UTIs or long-lasting or untreated UTIs. In case of severe kidney damage, you might be able to get dialysis. Doctors only use the treatment to the end-stage kidney failure, and this involves the loss of 85 to 90% of kidney function. And this is aimed to help the kidney function healthier, and it helps it remove waste, salt, water, and maintain the correct levels of chemicals and potassium, maintaining blood pressure. The two most common types are hemodialysis and peritoneal dialysis. The kidney function is both osmotic regulation and excretion. Kidneys consist of tubules. The tubules of the kidneys are arranged in an organized manner and are close associated with network of capillaries. The vertebrate excretory system also includes ducts and other structures that carry urine from the tubules to the kidneys and out of the body. Disposing of metabolic waste and controlling body fluid composition, excretory systems play a big role in homeostasis. This process begins with the body fluids are brought in contact with the selective permeable membrane of the transport epithelium. Hydrostatic pressure drives the process of filtration. Cells and proteins and other big molecules can't cross the epithelial membrane and remain in the body fluid. Water and small solutes such as salts, sugars, amino acids, and nitrogen cross the membrane through a solute called the filtrate. The filtrate is converted into the waste by specific transport, and it carries in and out the filtrate. The process of selective reabsorption covers useful molecules and waters from filtrate from them to the body fluid. Valuable solutes include glucose, certain salts, vitamins, hormones, amino acids that are reabsorbed by active and passive transport. Non-essential solutes and waste are left in the filtrate, or they are added by selective secretion, which occurs in active transport. The pumping of these solutes determines whether water moves by osmosis or out as filtrate. The last step is excretion, which is the process of filtrate containing nitrogen and water is released into the body fluid, and it leaves as urine. In the human kidney filtrates forms when the fluid passes from the bloodstream to the lumen to the Bowman's capsule. The glomerular capillaries and specialized cells of the Bowman's capsule retain blood cells and large molecules such as plasma proteins, but they are not permeable to water in small solutes. They filtrate produced in the capsule contain salt, glucose, amino acids, vitamins, nitrogenous waste, and other molecules. Because such molecules pass between the glomerular capillaries and Bowman capsule, the concentration of these solutes initially filtrate are the same as in blood plasma. Under normal conditions, roughly 1,600 liters of blood flow through a pair of human kidneys each day, which only leaves 180 liters of initial filtrate, but the volume of the composition of the filtrate are changed dramatically and processes reabsorbed into the blood, leaving only 1.5 liters of urine to be transported to the bladder. Reabsorption in the proximal tubule is critical to the recapture of ions and the valuable nutrients from the huge volume of filtrate. Sodium in the filtrate enters the cells and transports through the epithelium by the facilitated diffusion and the mechanisms. The sodium that is transferred by active transport follows water by osmosis, reducing filtrate volume. The salt and water exit and filtrate diffuse from the intestinal fluid. Processing of filtration of the proximal tubule helps maintain relative constant in the body fluids. Cells of the transport epithelium secrete H+ into the lumen of the tubule, but also synthesize and secrete ammonia, which act as a buffer to H+ in form of the ammonia. The more acidic the filtrate, the more ammonia and cells produce and secrete. The mammal's urine usually contains some ammonia from the source. The proximal tubules they reabsorb about 90% of the buffer bicarbonate from the filtrate, contributing further to the body fluids. As the filtrate passes through the proximal tubule, materials to be excreted from the concentrated urine, leaving the body fluids during the non-selective filtration process and remain in the filtrate of the water and salts reabsorbed. The molecules are active secreted by the transport epithelium into the lumens. Sorry, I'm so nervous. Upon leaving the proximal tubule, filtrates enter the loop of Hilli, which further reduces the filtrate volume through distinct stages of water and salt movement. In the first portion of the loop, the descending limb made numerous water channels formed by aquaporin proteins make the transport of epithelium more permeable to water, and there are almost no channels for salt and other small solutes, resulting in low permeability for these substances. For water to move out of the water tubule by osmosis, the interstitial fluid bathing the tubule must be hypoosmotic to the filtrate. The condition is met along the entire length of the descending limb because the osmolarity of the interstitial fluid increases progressively from the cortex through the medulla. As a result, the filtrate loses water and increases in its solute all along the journey down to the descending limb. The filtrate reaches the tip of the loop and returns to the cortex in the ascending limb. Unlike the descending membrane that faces the filtrate in the ascending limb, it is permeable to water. The ascending limb has two specialized regions, a thin segment near the loop and a thick segment that is adjusted to the distal tube. As filtrate ascends to the segment, sodium is highly concentrated in the descending limb, diffusing out of the permeable tubule into the intestinal fluid. The movement of sodium out of the tubule helps maintain the osmolarity of the interstitial fluid in the medulla.